the Town of Poughkeepsie Planning Board for March 15th, 2018. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I shouldn't have gone as far to the end last night. What? I shouldn't have gone.
Thank you all for coming this evening. I'd like to welcome Mike Welty right here to my right. He's a new Town of Poughkeepsie Director of Planning and Development.
Thank you, John.
And it's his first meeting, and it's almost his first week, so hey, doesn't get much better than that. Okay. Let me see. I got to get my paperwork together here for Plan B. Public hearing number 1, Plan B Brewery. Site plan public hearing for proposed tasting room in an existing barn on the site of a brewery and farm for its ingredients, 115 Underhill Road, zoned R4A, residence, single family 4 acre, 24 acres, type 2 action, PBFB New York LLC owner. This applicant has withdrawn their special use permit and site plan applications. Staff recommends the planning board acknowledge the withdrawal of the special use permit and site plan application per correspondence with the applicant of today, March 15, 2018. So I move that we open and then close the public hearing since we adjourned it. Sound fair? All right. So I move we open the public hearing.
Second.
Been seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. I now move that we close the public hearing.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. And the application is now dismissed. Thank you. Application number 2. Raymond Avenue School redevelopment, zoning amendment recommendation to the town board and site plan public hearing regarding a proposed amendment for an anchor project use and proposed mixed-use development, including 181 plus or minus apartments, 14,990 square feet, commercial space, open area, and 220 plus or minus parking spaces. The site redevelopment would convert a former school building to 47 apartments consisting of 2 3-story buildings, a ground floor retail upper story, residential use, 1 4-story residential building over a garage podium and site amenities, 25 and 31 Raymond Avenue, zoned ATC, Arlington Town Center, 6.4 acres. Unlisted action, POS Management Contract Vendee, Arlington Grade School and Arlington Central School District owners. On March 8th, 2018, the applicant advised staff that the review process will be temporarily suspended and requests that the item be tabled. Staff recommends the planning board adjourn the public hearing to April 19th, 2018.
So moved.
So moved. Call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Second.
Opposed? Motion carries.
One abstain.
Sorry about that. Peter has abstained. Recused himself from his application. So we are going to, what do we do? We're adjourning the public hearing until April 19th, 2018. And call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
One abstention. Motion carries 6-0. Since you've abstained, you don't even have to abstain. You have to vote. So that's taken care of. Okay. Public hearing number 3, North Point Center. Site plan public hearing for the town portion of a proposed project in the town and city of Poughkeepsie. In the town, additional parking on a parcel with an existing restaurant, and in the city, site redevelopment of 2 new buildings of 3 stories each, total 12,483 square feet, office/commercial, and 18 apartments of 1 to 2 bedrooms, in addition to an existing 3-story office building. In the town, 120 Delafield Street, Zone BH, Business Highway, and WDI Waterfront District 1, 1.64 acres. In the city, 112 Delafield Street, 110 Delafield Street, 54 Spruce Street, 52 Spruce Street, 48 Spruce Street, and 46 Spruce Street. Zoned C1 neighborhood commercial and R4 medium density residential, 1.78 acres, total of 3.42 acres. The secret negative declaration on unlisted action was adopted on January 17, 2018 by City of Poughkeepsie Planning Board as lead agency, North Point Center LLC owner. So, this one again.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kelly Leibold with KRC.
If you recall, this application has been before you several times. This project is located in the city and the town of Poughkeepsie. And if you recall, this board had no objection to the city of Poughkeepsie acting as the lead agency for the review of the project, which they did in fact do. We have been back and forth between the city and the town in soliciting comments from both boards. The city provided a secret determination, and I provided you with their negative declaration in the application package I gave you January 30th. At this time, we're really nearing the end of our review with the city and hopefully our end of our review with the town, and I just wanted to bring you up to speed with where we were. We are before the City of Poughkeepsie Planning Board meeting next week on March 20th. We have advanced the design drawings by Mazer Consulting, who is the engineer for the DOT portion of the project. We have advanced those drawings with DOT and are prepared to submit the permit application for the on-street parking. We also appeared before the City of Poughkeepsie Zoning Board of Appeals and received all of the variances that were needed for the project, mostly because it's in two different municipalities. It resulted in the need for several setback variances. But we also did receive a variance for parking from the City of Poughkeepsie. We're required to have 200 parking spaces, and we were providing 184. So we received the variance for 16 parking spaces. At this time, we're hoping to wrap up any additional questions or comments that you may have. I'm happy to do a presentation of the project if you'd like me to. If not, I can just solicit your comments or any comments that the public has.
Okay, thank you. Who's got this one? Chris?
Hi, Kelly. Thank you for the overview. Just based on a conversation that took place with the planning board earlier this week, there was concern about the placement of the crosswalk along Delafield Street and its proximity to Route 9. So if you wouldn't mind just talking us through the rationale behind that and perhaps how you came to deciding on that.
Sure.
Is there a switch on it?
Is there a switch?
Don? What about the other one? Okay, there. That's good. Okay, I'm going to use the Mazer plan. It's a little bit smaller, but this is the crosswalk that you're referencing. So just to orient everyone, US Route 9 is here. This is Delafield Street, and this is the existing Cosimo's restaurant. Currently, there is a crosswalk right across from the Hart Center's driveway that allows people to cross and come down to US Route 9. When we began our discussions with New York State DOT with respect to all of the improvements, which are the on-street parking spaces and a new sidewalk, it resulted in a discussion of that crosswalk and what do we do with it. The problem is when you have a crosswalk to nowhere, which may have been okay several years ago, it doesn't meet ADA requirements and it can't continue. And so this crosswalk essentially was interfering with the parking spaces, and you would have people crossing into an area that's really a through street where cars are going to be parking and cross onto the existing sidewalk that's on Delafield now. So the location of the crosswalk really wasn't proposed by us. It was proposed and discussed by New York State DOT. They advised us that this is the location that they wanted the crosswalk because of the reasons that I just set forth. We could have kept the crosswalk and actually moved it a little bit further in closer to Spruce. However, there's a large existing City of Poughkeepsie sewer pump station in that location, and there's no place to put an additional sidewalk on that side of the street. If we were to shift the sidewalk, we would be going into the private property at that point. So this is where they wanted the crosswalk, and that's where they have asked us to place it.
Okay, thank you. So planning staff has reviewed the plans as submitted since the last submission, which I think was in January. And if the board is in agreement, the staff does recommend opening and closing the public hearing this evening. And again, if you're in agreement, adopting a resolution to grant conditional site plan approval. If there are no outstanding comments in addition to those posed here, that would require further review.
Thank you. let me open the public hearing first, and then we'll see if anybody has anything to say. I move we open the public hearing.
Second.
Moved and seconded, call the question, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries 7-0. Is there anyone in the audience wish to comment on North Point Center application? No one signed up to speak at any of the public hearings, but just thought I would ask.
It doesn't look like
It doesn't look like anyone has. Can I finish your sentence?
I move we close the public hearing.
Second.
Moved and seconded, call the question, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries 7-0. Let me go around the board, see if there's any questions. Let's start with Nicole.
No, I was one of the people that actually brought that up in a meeting earlier this week, because Route 9 is a bit dangerous, and I could just see, an accident of some sort happening right there. I had one question for you, though. How much are you going to kind of dig into the lawn there to make those parking spots? Could you just
So
go over
if you
that?
know the area, there's an existing stone wall.
Right, yes.
And
Are you going all the way up to that?
no, we're
Oh,
not.
okay.
We're just going in really the width of a car, which is a 9-foot width. I think it's 10 foot that they're bringing it in, plus the sidewalk. So we're not removing the stone wall.
Okay,
Everything is on the low side of the stone wall.
okay, all right.
And just one more further comment, because you
Sure.
raised it. I actually had a lengthy discussion with Mike yesterday about that crosswalk, and I just want to add, DOT, we did have discussions about actually bringing it in a little bit further on Delafield, because, logic says, okay, it's going to be a little bit safer, but at that point, the sight distance for someone who's coming northbound and making the right onto Delafield is lost. And so
Okay,
I
they
think
can't
that's
see
why
them.
DOT, yeah, we had a lot of people in the room. There was the pedestrian, the bike safety, the whole group of people in the room trying to figure out the right location for that.
Okay, great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Rocco? I'm sorry, Brian?
No, I'm all set, thank you.
Kelly, just if you could refresh my memory, was there any improvements to the flow going to be made to the existing Cosmos parking lot? I don't know if it was or not. I was just curious, because that's not a nice parking lot at all. Just
Well,
curious.
now I'm afraid to say no, but
No, I mean, it's not a showstopper. I was
it
just
isn't,
curious.
yeah. So the existing entrance stays the same.
Right.
And we were really trying to create, little mini work play and keep everything centralized with one access point. We did add, I don't know when the last time that you were there, but we came before this board and had approval from this board to add additional parking spaces
Yeah,
to
that I
the
remember.
west.
Yeah, I
So we did
remember.
add those, and I think they did make a fairly significant difference with respect to the parking. But we do have an additional, it's hard to tell, we actually received a demo permit from the city, and a lot of those houses came down today, a lot of those structures. So if you go over, you'll get a better sense of what's going on the city side. But there's an entire parking lot that's getting added in the back that will provide additional parking spaces for the residents, and then the office space. And the concept is shared parking, so they're opposite demand.
I have to tell you, I'll comment on, I've seen the new spots, and I was at a pretty large event, and there was still adequate parking.
Good, thank you.
Yeah, I think there's probably enough in there. It's just the flow is very.
It's tough, yeah, it's
It's a
tough. Well, it
crazy
slows
flow.
people down, that's what it
Okay,
does.
well, that's
Yeah.
for sure. Okay, thank you.
That was good. That was good.
Yeah, that was my concern also, is parking is always tight there, so good it's being looked at. And the crosswalk issue, I don't know if you could go diagonally to that little triangle in front of the parked cars versus,
Oh, yes, I think someone had mentioned that. I'm not sure if DOT is going to
That's
want
through
that
an
or not.
intersection
Yeah, it's
as
under
well.
their, you're talking about right here? I think someone had mentioned a little
yeah,
triangle.
so, I mean,
Yeah,
in front of
if-
your new,
If they require that be striped, we'll stripe it, but it'll be under their purview if they tell us to stripe that
Okay.
little spot.
I mean, as Nicole mentioned, it's just the cars coming off Route 9 are higher speed until
Yeah.
they get onto the road, and then,
Yeah, we hope that this is traffic calming.
so it's,
Yeah.
right.
And there is a bike rack. I forgot to say
Ah.
that. I always forget to say that, but there is a bike rack.
Your reputation precedes you.
Just jumping in, because I know in the planning staff comments, I did bring up that area about striping. So I think Carl was really more getting at putting a crosswalk across in that particular location.
Yeah.
But obviously with your conversations with DOT, that's
We can't,
not, yeah.
correct. We're actually removing the one that's there now.
Okay, and so I just raised the concern because there is concern about the parallel parking as raised by town staff and also at the county level as well. I'm just striping that just so, everyone's always looking for parking, and, you don't have that one individual trying to just squeeze in there. And I think that it would do a lot to just deter people.
We can show it on the plans to DOT, and if they accept it, they accept it. If they don't, then we would have to take it off.
And then also with the on-street parking, on some of the plans, it's, there are numbers indicating how many spaces there are on-street, but the amount of spaces shown does not match the number that's indicated. So I don't know if the plan is cut off on certain sheets, but just to clarify, how many on-street parking spaces are there going to be within town limits?
The problem is in front of Delafield Street, the DOT was back and forth as far as site distance, so we were there's 12. So we were originally had 11, and then it went back to 12.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are you done?
Yeah.
Okay. Ben?
Nothing.
Peter?
I'm good.
Thank you.
Oh.
My biggest problem with that parking lot as it is today, I guess it must be, a lot of people take up 2 spaces in that particular restaurant. I don't know why. If they've been in the restaurant.
Italian. We
They were in the restaurant, and came back out, and went back in. I was like, okay. Anyway, that's good. I'm glad to see this is happening.
Thank you.
I move that the planning board grant conditional site plan approval for the North Point Center project, subject to the following. Respond to the comments of the planning board and those received from the town departments and agencies, and responses to be reviewed by the planning department as to the adequacy and completeness, inclusive but not limited to the following 1 through 4.
Second.
We moved in second, the planning board grant conditional site plan approval for the North Point Center project, subject to the following. Responses to comments of the planning board and those received from town departments and agencies, and responses to be reviewed by the planning department as to adequacy and completeness, inclusiveness, but not limited to the following, 1 through 4, those being comments from planning, sewer, engineering, and the water department.
Mr. Chair, I assume that the planning department comments include that there needs to be a sidewalk maintenance agreement, and that's included. And I know that there was discussion about mirroring
Added.
conditions that the city might impose by the town, so that there was reciprocal conditions. So to the extent that that might be a number 5, unless that's part of the planning department comments, that there be reciprocal conditions.
It is identified under number 7 of planning
Okay.
department comments.
And a sidewalk maintenance agreement was forwarded.
Yes, it was.
Already,
Thank you.
so they have it. So we're
Is
just
that in there
waiting
too,
for,
sidewalk maintenance?
Yes.
it was
It's
submitted.
covered?
Yes.
Okay, great, then resolution stands.
Okay, call the question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
Architecture for the parking lot?
Kelly, they want to do architectural review for the parking lot?
It's Fred.
Okay. All right.
What shade?
Looks nice.
That's a nice looking.
Okay. McDonald Heights Town Center, Eastdale Village. Site plan subdivision and special use permit public hearing for proposed mixed-use development consisting of up to 390 residential dwelling units and apartments and townhouses, 85,000 to 185,000 square feet of commercial and non-residential space, recreational amenities, and associated parking and utilities. 928, 932, 935, and 936 Dutchess Turnpike. Dutchess Turnpike and Victory Lane, Zone MHC, McDonald Heights Center, IH Heavy Industry District, 60.87 acres. FEIS for type 1 action accepted as complete January 18th, 2018. Meadowview Properties LLC, Kirchhoff Properties LLC, Industrial Retro LLC, owners to be adjourned. Okay,
I'll make a motion.
go ahead.
I move that the site plan subdivision and special use permit public hearing for this project be adjourned to April 19th, 2018.
Second.
Been moved and seconded that we adjourn the public hearing to April 19th, 2018. Call the question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
Mr. Chairman, just for the record and for the public, this item, the applicant was not prepared to address the site plan review at this time because the later item of the secret findings is on the agenda, and that's, although the plans were presented, they're in fact moot, and they requested that they not be presented at this time.
Okay. The findings would indicate that there'd be some changes to the site plan. And that's
Correct.
what it's all- okay. Okay, motion to suspend the rules,
So moved.
seconded?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Anyone in the audience wish to comment on any other agenda items? Seeing no one, I move we resume the rules.
Second.
Okay, call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Yes. Okay, plan review. We're going to change the schedule a little bit. We're going to put Ready Coffee on number 1 to have elsewhere to be on another project, so.
I'll tell you that story.
Hi,
Hello,
and you are?
Anthony Mirando, attorney with the law firm of Cuddy and Fader. I'm here tonight on behalf of the applicants.
Scott Blakely with Insight Engineering. We're the site engineers and landscape architects for the project.
Great, speak into the microphone since we're on television.
Sure. Jed Bonham with Principal of Ready Coffee.
Great, thank you all for coming.
Well, first, let me say thank you for moving us up on the agenda. We very much appreciate it. We have to try to get down to Fishkill this evening, so thank you. Thank you for having us tonight. We really appreciate this opportunity, and as you can probably get a sense of with the applicant when he speaks, very excited about this, what we consider a very interesting proposal for the town of Poughkeepsie. The proposal, in summary, is to install what I think is a pretty innovative drive-through coffee kiosk in a largely unused portion of the 9 Mall along Route 9. Something I thought would be helpful to have in front of you as we discuss this evening is a copy of what the space in the existing mall that we will be occupying. I think it was in our materials, but I brought additional copies if that's helpful.
Okay, we have it in the materials.
Have it? Okay.
We have it.
We're good. But thank you.
So as many of you may know, probably better than I, in the past, this portion of the 9 Mall actually had a drive-through bank many years ago. It was a little bit different location and obviously much bigger. This kiosk is proposed approximately 500 square feet of space with, in addition to the parking and the access area. It will essentially serve grab-and-go coffee, and as the applicants will explain in a few minutes, it's a craft type of coffee, and it's a very interesting new model as to how to provide a higher-end type of coffee to customers. There's a walk-up as well as a drive-through. There is no internal seating area, and there is no actually outdoor seating proposed for this project. Now, a couple procedural items. We understand the zoning administrator reviewed the materials and found that we will need a couple variances. So we will be filing that application shortly to the ZBA for the next meeting, we hope. I'll just touch on that for a quick second, and Scott will mention a few more things about it on the site plan. But the kiosk is actually located further from Route 9 than some of the existing buildings on the site. So these variances are somewhat a little bit technical in nature, in that the front yard variance will be for a setback that is, again, greater than some of the existing buildings on the site, including a bank kiosk that's nearby our proposal. Also, the side yard setback variance will actually be just to the internal lot line. So it's really a tax lot line rather than an actual property line. I think it's also important just to mention, I think was brought up by your planner as well, and in our materials, that this application is a type 2 one underneath seeker, under seeker. So hopefully we can complete that finding this evening as well. Scott, do you want to?
Do you want to walk them through this?
Yeah. Oh, excuse me, I meant.
Give a quick
Yeah,
overview.
thank you.
I thought that was already variances? Yeah, but maybe not. No, maybe it's not. I'm sure.
Again, I'm Jed Bonham, Ready Coffee, and I need to speak into the microphone, is that correct?
We were having trouble with that one unless they switched it.
She switched it.
Okay, great.
That one works too.
Okay, on.
There you go.
Okay.
There you go.
So this is just to give you a little bit of a feel for Ready Coffee, for who we are. We believe better days start with better coffee.
This is your first outlet?
Excuse me?
This be your first outlet?
Yeah, we are currently in the process of developing 2, of which this will be one. And the other area we're developing is roughly 4 miles from this site. So we are a craft coffee company focused on drive-through service. I think Anthony gave a very good overview generally of what we are. We combine craft coffee with convenience. So usually when coffee is convenient, it's not necessarily all that good. We start from the ground up by craft roasting the coffee. As you can see here, we are a local company, and that roasting is done locally. So we are headquartered south of Poughkeepsie on Route 376, and that's where we intend to make our headquarters. Because we are serving really just coffee, so other places that you might go have food offerings where they assemble the food or warm the food. This is really mostly just coffee. And there are some food items, but they're mostly simply grab-and-go food items. So the whole focus of the product is very high-quality coffee, and we think people will love it. We are additionally committed to our communities, so we feel very strongly about developing here, and I have a slide a little further on. We feel very strongly about building ties and building our business here. We think there's a very strong food and craft culture that exists in Dutchess County. We think it's an excellent place to be located. And as we expand, if we expand, we intend to make Dutchess County our home. I'll just flip through the slide very quickly, but I'm now going to get into the kiosk. If you look at the kiosk, I know there are some renderings and some architecturals in the package. It's a 16 by 32 foot long building. As Anthony said, there's also, people have the option of walking up. Some people do not like to drive through, they like to park and come up to a walk-up window and be on their way. Some people just like to stretch their legs if they're on a long trip. This is a slightly different rendering than the one you have in your package. It's the same building, but this one is more accurate to the materials specified in the A1. And this is what it looks like. It's a 500 square foot building, drive-through on what will be the north side of the building. There'll be a walk-up window for those who wish to access it that way. It's simple and it's fast.
How fast?
What was that?
How fast? That's a leading question.
It's not a leading question. Well, let me start. Let me start by giving you a little bit of a frame of reference. Starbucks, their average cycle times are close to 2 minutes nationally, going through the drive-through. Dunkin' Donuts cycle times are 1:30 going through the drive-through. Our cycle times will be between 35 and 55 seconds. So about twice as fast. Neither of those businesses was developed for speed. Starbucks, I'm a native of the Pacific Northwest, and I know Starbucks was developed as a coffee shop where, forget speed, it was all about coming in and immersing yourself in the Starbucks. It was a coffee shop. Coffee house type of format. And Dunkin' Donuts is a donut shop. Neither of them was geared from the ground up for speed, and that's one of the reasons. So the final slide, and I'm running out of easel here, so I'll hold it. Thank you. Oh, I did have that rendering. Okay. You can put it there. That's fine.
Thank you.
And that is a rendering.
That was nice, Carol.
Thank you. That is a reasonably accurate rendering of the actual site, showing the garbage enclosure, some of the landscaping, and the kiosk itself. I I touched on this already, and it's the last slide. We aren't locally headquartered. We do have plans to expand, and Dutchess County will be our home. This is where we are locating. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Should I leave this on?
No.
Didn't there used to be a photo mat in that location? The credit union still has a drive-up ATM right now.
Yeah, the one, you mean the ATM kiosk that's there now?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's,
I could have swore there was a photo mat there. Anybody remember that years ago?
Yep.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I know, in the 90s,
Pictured in my mind.
there was a bank that was there and where we are, and then it was moved or taken down at some point since 98 or 2000, something like
It
that.
could be. I just.
Well, you know probably better than I do, so.
No, we're about the same age.
I was going to say good evening, but good afternoon. I'll walk you briefly through the site plan and give you an idea of how we developed the circulation, building location. I think that'll help you understand sort of the methodology. The site is the 9 Mall. Our project area is at this central access in front of what is Babies R Us and Aldi, I believe, here. So we're in this upper area, which is currently underutilized, not utilized at all for parking within the mall itself. This is an enlarged plan, and with any drive-through, whether it's a coffee or any other type of use, the key is the queuing and the circulation through the site. So we looked at a number of alternatives for the building location. We also looked at a number of alternatives for circulation through the site. And what we found was that by providing access to the drive-through in this location and then bringing them in a north direction to the window on this side, that allowed us to provide maximum queuing in this area. We show 7 cars currently. There also is the ability to queue 3 additional cars in this access drive right here. So the circulation through the site works fairly well. This is one of the access drives that I mentioned, the central. There is a north-south access through the mall, which is here. So what we've been able to do is to locate the building, the circulation, the queuing in the maximum area that will provide the best circulation through the site. It's not going to queue or block the main access or any of the access points through the mall. We are providing landscaping within this asphalt area. We're providing a couple of deciduous trees and a number of shrubs and ground covers in an area that is currently paved. We have a reduction in impervious surface associated with the site. We have a proposed refuse enclosure in this location. That is going to be made of split-face block. It's relatively attractive. It'll have an access door on this end, and we've designed this for ease of access for the refuse company to come and pick up the containers. We also have a man or woman access on the back end of it right here for the employees to place the garbage or recyclables in the container. It's located in an area, as we mentioned, that was previously a drive-through bank a number of years ago. Anthony had mentioned the front yard setback, which is in this location. The existing bank kiosk, which is located to the south, is right here. Our building is proposed further back from that front property line than the kiosk or the Firestone building, which is to the north. And Anthony mentioned that we will require a variance. We looked at a number of alternatives for the building location. We had provided a plan that located the building a little closer to the front property line, but we felt, based on the existing conditions out there, we wanted to push it back. Orienting the building in this location, we also looked at the possibility of queuing to the east. But because of the shortness of this access, it didn't provide the queuing that we felt that we needed for the use. As Jed mentioned, the average cycle time is about 45 seconds. So based on our traffic engineer's analysis, we have more than adequate queuing for the project.
Thank you very much. It's an exciting project.
Yep. So thank you for giving that overview. And so staff reviewed the project, and we've been in communication with both engineering staff, obviously Anthony, and Jed and his partner Stevens. They've come in and been proactive about meeting with town staff and just trying to understand what the best approach is for the project, and we thank them for that. So staff has reviewed and provided a list of comments. We are going to add a list. Well, first of all, we would want you to read into the record, the action is a type 2 action. Hello?
Yes.
Type 2 action per seeker requirements. And we also want to, again, you've addressed the zoning requirements, the variances that you would be seeking. Something that I had failed to mention on your potential, if the board chooses to move forward with a conditional approval this evening, is the board would condition their approval based on you receiving your variances from the ZBA before the chairman would sign the plan. So we would add that as 11 to the list. You would, if, again, we're moving forward, we would be conducting architectural review. And just another note is that Dutchess County planning comments did come in this morning. We got them out to the applicant as soon as possible. We may want to have a discussion with the applicant if they are ready to do so. I will put that back on them, just putting you on the spot. But in the staff level review of the comments that have been received, if we number the bullet points that are listed, 1 through 7, staff would definitely recommend a discussion at minimum of bullet 2, 3, 4, and 6. There were comments also related to signage, again covered under the zoning conversation. There's also discussion of lighting, but town planning staff has actually captured that in their review comments as well.
Thank you. And for the record, I was so anxious to hear what you had to say. I neglected to, for the record, that this is site plan review, the construction of a 501 square foot coffee kiosk with associated parking and circulation improvements, landscaping, lighting, and other site improvements, 1810 South Road and 1840 South Road. Zone BSC Business Shopping Center, District 22.23 acres. It is a type 2 action, 9 Mall Associates LLC owner, for the record. Okay. Peter, anything on this? Estero?
The engineering department just had, some minor comments trying to incorporate some of the requirements of the water department and the sewer department. And that's like basically just making sure that there's the standard water and sewer department notes on the plan. So it's relatively minor. I assume these were provided to the applicant.
Thank you. Let me start with Brian.
I'm sorry, I might have missed it. Hours of operation?
Good question.
We are proposing 5 a.m. to 10 p.m.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, other than that, it sounds like a great idea. I like the site, the renderings, and yeah, good luck.
Thank you. Rocco?
Yeah, do you plan, I assumed that you plan social media and pre-ordering and everything else at this site? I mean, I assume I can pre-order
We will
before I
find
get
you
there.
on Facebook and make sure
No,
that
I
you.
don't want to be found on Facebook. I want to be able to order before I get there.
He's looking down, he's looking to cut that 35 seconds.
Will there be an online app?
A 9-second
There-
delivery of coffee.
We, how do I answer this?
Well,
We actually, it's a longer discussion, but we will not have an online app
Okay.
initially. And you might think, boy, they should really have an online app. But I think once you come and try it, which we'd really like you to do, you'll see that it's fast. It really moves. And that there are certain service things we do that make an online app not as necessary as
Okay, I've got,
Go ahead.
okay, since you won't have an online app and
It's not contingent on that.
on your rendering here, is there going to be a menu display someplace?
there will be a menu display on the unit itself.
Where is that? Because I don't see it. That's why I was curious.
Yeah, let me.
And what size and how many items you're gonna have on there, et cetera?
Yeah, where's the menu board? Where's the placement of that?
Yeah, where's the
Menu
menu
board.
board gonna be?
Is there a menu?
And will it be lit? Will it be, I mean, I assume there's gonna be a speaker thing because,
The menu is essentially posted in the window
So
of the unit.
Yeah, I think explain
What
that,
about
how they
drive-thru?
pick
You gotta speak into the microphone, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so you order and pick up at the same window, and the menu is in the window.
so
where
if
you are picking up.
I'm one of those that's, not, you know, maybe I'll change my mind and stuff them up to 2 minutes. I'm just curious because how many items do you plan?
The exact number of items, it's a fairly streamlined menu. To give you a number, I think maybe 12 or 14 items.
Okay, I mean,
I'm
so I have
picturing
to
the menu in
read
my
through
head.
that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I should also say that this model is popular in the West. It's a tried and true model that has been developed over decades. Coffee is a little further behind here, but out West, this is a model that's been developed over decades. And the service model we're talking about has been beaten up over a long period of time. And yeah, so the menu itself will essentially, the unit has very large windows. You can probably see on the rendering, it has large windows. And the menu is in the window. And you order at that window and are served at that window.
So there'll be two menus, one at the walk-up window and one at the drive-through?
Yes, there'll be one on that side in the window also, correct.
Okay.
They're gonna have some growing pains.
Yeah, okay. And then I was curious, how do I order and what do I
Your
know?
business
what's
model is your
available?
business model, that's not our business.
Yeah, no, I understand, but, and I think when you first come and see it for the first time, it'll all make a lot of sense. But and it may seem strange that there isn't a menu 40 feet back with a speaker and bright lights, but the model doesn't necessitate.
We're all conditioned.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but there isn't a menu board. Think of it like if you walk up to an old style ice cream shop when you go to the window and you say, hey, I'd like vanilla with chocolate, something like that. It's with a paper menu kind of by the window. It's not a McDonald's or a fast food
An
restaurant.
enclosed menu board
Yeah,
of any kind.
that's difficult to change, or it's something that's permanent. It's much
Right,
more.
well, part of the reason I asked was, is it gonna be lit? Is it gonna be
Yeah, no.
flashing
No.
with?
Yeah, we want to make sure we're not tripping any
No, the
zoning.
one of the flavor of the day is gonna be flashing at me and stuff like that?
Well, that we will have in,
I'll make sure there's no strobe lights on.
It is not, it's not an illuminated sign. It
Okay.
would, I think Anthony gave a very good example of that, which is how people probably ordered in the 50s
All right,
from.
I'm good.
Brian
I
had
just
one more.
wanted to go back, and I won't ask about the menu. The last time I was at that area, there seemed to be a lot of craters in that parking lot. Are you guys doing anything, I think right in that area too? Doing anything with the surface there? Around it? Is the tenant, I mean,
Yeah,
parking lot
the footprint of the building and the raised landscaped area is around 8,000 square feet. So we're going to be redoing the area immediately around that because we'll have to come in and saw cut and remove some pavement and grade it to make sure it's draining. So there will be some repairs in the immediate area where we're working.
So, and I'm sorry, my brain's working faster than my mouth. On Route 9, I'm just thinking probably most of your customers are gonna be going southbound, and that's a left they'll have to make, correct? So is that gonna turn into kind of a queue in that turning lane?
I believe, and I'm doing this from memory, I believe our AKRF, our traffic engineer, is assuming 60% of our customers will be coming from the south.
Great. Okay.
Yeah.
And I think that's pretty typical. People like to make right turns instead of left turns.
I'm with
And
you. Okay. I just thought of, in the commuting hour, maybe more south, but, okay.
And the nice part is it's between two controlled intersections, so that helps.
They are. I just know that left-hand turn coming south gets a little backed up now.
It does.
But when Babies R Us goes, which they probably will, it'll ease it. Okay. All right, cool, I'm done.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah,
Uh,
thank you.
Yeah, just to expand on Brian's comment there, what I had noticed there with the pavement, it's all rippled along the parking lot, parking on the south side of the dumpster there, where the trees planted in that median there have broken up the pavement on the median. It's all out of whack and crumbled, and the tree roots have bumped up the whole pavement there. So I don't know if that's something you could talk to them all about, because cars exiting, if cars exit and go around your dumpster that way, they could be running into that issue.
Yeah, the applicant has a lease area that he is responsible and can do work within, but it's something he can talk to the landlord about.
And the other thing to talk to them about is, right now, where your building is planned to be placed is snow storage. So they have to make sure they put snow storage in a different spot, but they do have a lot of parking area that's underutilized right now, so.
They can use the Babies R Us store.
Could be, there's.
I should say.
open the doors and push it in.
At this point, it's just something that, make sure it's coordinated with them, that they know they're not putting it in the same spot.
Yes.
Snow storage. Good.
Are they going to remove their own snow?
Okay.
Good
You
point.
good?
I guess that's a question too. Are you guys dealing with the snow removal at all, or you have a contract with the mall to just?
Our agreement with the landlord states that they will continue to be responsible for snow removal.
Okay.
I mean, we are, yes, generally that's true. Within our landscaped areas, we have a responsibility, but on the roadways
Right.
and our travel lanes, the current contractor or whoever they contract with will do that also.
Including your driving queue.
Correct.
Okay. All right, I mean, the county has a lot of comments. We got their county letter late. Some things to look at. I wish there had been a sidewalk along the mall in front that you could tie into, but there is not at the moment. You pressure the mall to put one in, but I don't believe that's your responsibility directly as a tenant there.
On that note, so do you want to comment on anything that has been provided by the county this evening? Or were you looking to kind of digest those comments and come back to the board?
No, we feel pretty good about our presentation and the materials that are before the board in terms of addressing comments that we sort of anticipated. I would say that a couple of them I can quickly touch on, and that mostly related to their circulation and traffic questions. Without belaboring the point, we've done an extensive analysis on this with AKRF. I actually have a couple of the items that JMC asked for their file with me this evening that I can provide to you with respect to turning movements. But correct me if I'm mischaracterizing the JMC report back on ours, that they didn't see any issues. So that's two very highly regarded professional experts addressing both traffic, parking, and circulation that we feel pretty good about. I would also add that where they talked about the sidewalk. As one of the board members just mentioned, that's something that we feel is very much outside of the scope of this application. I think they're proposing that a 500 square foot tenant of the shopping mall would put in a 1,500 foot sidewalk across the entire front of Route 9. So we feel pretty good that that's not a direct connection to this application. With respect to signage, we are proposing to submit our signage variance request as soon as we can for the next ZBA meeting. And I would just note for the board's own reference that the signage that's proposed here, again, is a little bit of in a technical nature, we need a variance only because, well, we do need a variance, but we're proposing 3 wall signs, and the code requires, has a limit of 1. But to keep in mind, a lot of that is due to the location of the kiosk as well as the dimensions and size. It's a small kiosk. So we are actually about, I think, 30 or 40 square foot under what another tenant could put on for 1 wall sign. We're just breaking it up into 3. I think you're permitted 1 wall sign at 100 square feet, and we're doing 3 wall signs at approximately 60 square feet. So it's really more of a form over substance kind of thing, in my humble opinion. But I just wanted to mention that in response to the county's comment.
I mean, the only other comment they had was that the trash enclosure should be in a different location, but
yeah,
I can see that'd be more difficult for truck access, it seemed to me, but I don't know if you had any thoughts on that.
Yeah, and I'm sure Scott can illuminate this a little further, but they looked very closely at where the trash enclosure would go. It's something that came up in our
Yes.
staff meetings. There was a lot of discussion as well, I think, with the ZBA chair as well.
Yes.
So
Okay.
we look closely at that, and the way that it's angled is strategic. The way the landscaping is placed is strategic. It's supposed to actually make it kind of blend into the situation in the facility. It's not directly next to the building. I don't think, like you mentioned, you'd want a trash enclosure next to this small kiosk, and to move it further away would conflict with potential circulation and access. So we thought it was the most appropriate location, and we appreciated the comments from staff about that.
Just one note on that too. In reviewing these comments and with what's proposed, at least in the details for the refuse enclosure, the doors themselves are supposed to be steel gate. That is in our code, so we might have to make that modification. I just want to bring that to your attention right now.
Yeah, and we've discussed that with the applicant.
Okay,
And,
great.
Yeah, we'll modify that detail.
And then there, in the area where the removable bollards are proposed, there is a parking space that's immediately east,
That's another,
west of that?
East.
East of that, thank you. All turned around today. That if someone were to back out of that parking space, that would pretty much inhibit them from being able to back out right and turn left to leave the parking space. So there might need to be some adjustment there.
Yeah, we can take a look at
Sure.
that placement, and I think if we move them slightly to the west,
See?
Toward Route 9.
yeah, toward Route 9, I
west,
think
yeah.
we can make that reversing movement work much
Okay.
better.
Great.
Thank you.
yeah, that was one of the other county comments as
Yeah,
well.
that's good. They had a good comment there. You okay?
Yep.
This is kind of a unique application, and I'm glad you've chosen Town of Poughkeepsie to come to. I commend you on working with staff and zoning and offline before the meeting to get as much of your questions answered and things into your plan. And lastly, hiring a professional traffic engineer to answer all these questions as opposed to saying, well, we think this will work or that'll work. You got a professional involved right off. And I will tell you, in my experience, that we've had many an application where we've had to suggest they go out and get someone and do that, and you were proactive up front to do a lot of that work. So I commend you for all that, so that's great.
Thank you.
That said, Ben?
I like this idea, but I do have a couple of quick questions, hopefully. You mentioned coffee, and grab-and-go items. But I see you have shake machines and blenders. How does that relate to the coffee?
Yeah, so a lot of coffee drinks today are, if you've been to Starbucks, they have a Frappuccino. If you've been to Dunkin' Donuts, they have a Culotta. People aren't just drinking coffee on cold mornings, they're drinking it on hot summer days. And a lot of those drinks are essentially made in a shake machine. It's essentially a coffee shake. That's what a Frappuccino is. And so that's what those machines There's a single shake machine, and it holds essentially what we call a frozen coffee. So it's milk, espresso shots.
Will that slow down the cycle time?
No, it's pre-made, so all you do is you pull the lever into the cup and the person's gone.
Okay. The other thing is, there's a lot of businesses behind your kiosk here. Do you anticipate much walk-up trade? I mean, you have a sidewalk for cars that pull up and can go get something, but what about the people from all these buildings that work in these buildings here?
I don't know. Logic would say that they might, but I think practice would show that people get in their car and then drive 20 feet and park and come and get it. I don't know the answer to that. People, when you're driving through parking lots, you don't tend to see people walking all the way across them. And I'm assuming someone has studied this and found that people tend to maybe get the coffee on the way back out of the mall or something like that.
So they wouldn't take a coffee break, a lunch break, and go grab it?
Not that parking.
I don't know if anyone's ever studied that. This is a very popular concept out west, and even out there, I don't remember seeing people walking. There might be an occasional person who does that, but I don't think people can remember seeing people traversing across parking lots to do that. I think usually people are there to pick up their kids at karate, or they've gone to pick something up at Kohl's, and on their way back out of the mall, they think, oh, I have a 20-minute drive home. I need some coffee.
Okay.
That's my sense. There are probably 500 or 600 of these out west that are somewhat similar, I'd say comparable. And I can't remember that ever. I don't think there is a practice where people do walk across the parking lots. Not that it hasn't happened or doesn't happen possibly from time to time, but you don't see people walking from the Kohl's to the Firestone Tire Center. They typically get in their car and they drive the.
They don't walk as much out there as we do here in the east.
Yeah.
It's true.
And we're so accepting.
I don't think, my personal. Okay.
Thank you, Ben. Peter?
It's not clear from the drawing. The queue lane to the drive-through, is that going to be striped? Will it be clearly delineated?
Yes, it will. What we've provided in that access is we've provided the queuing lane, and we've also provided a pass-by lane. And that they will be delineated.
Good, because with a 45-second cycle time, the people are going to be in a hurry. So you want to have them clearly identified. And I can understand that the county expressed a concern about the north-south configuration, but I can see that if you had an east-west configuration, your queue would be backed right up into the pass-through lane. So that's all I have.
Great. Thank you. Any other questions? No?
Yeah, just to add to that, if the queue ever gets longer than 7, it can wrap around, down to the east a little bit.
Do you have any
That was erupting
non-dairy options?
Oh, yes.
Okay,
Yeah, people have varied diets.
right. Okay.
Just one other quick thing. Are these going to be automated, the espresso machines?
No, it's all hand-pulled espresso.
Oh, hand pulled?
Yeah.
Okay, because
It's the real thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Listen, as far as listen.
I think that seems very, very fast. That's why I was curious, because it takes a certain amount of time to draw an ounce and a half of espresso. And if you get a latte and stuff like that, you got to steam the milk and froth it and stuff.
I can tell already we will be giving you a demonstration once we're open, and we would love to do that.
He's bringing his stopwatch, okay?
And you bring your stopwatch.
I'm just curious, because it's great. I like this.
And I apologize, he doesn't want to release all his secrets to us.
Right.
So do you have
You will
iced
have
tea?
to sign a non-disclosure agreement before coming in, but.
There you go.
I like espresso, so I'm
Yeah,
ready
yeah.
to show
Iced
up.
tea?
Sure.
I'll be there. Okay. Okay.
He got
All
me
right.
at non-dairy.
I move that the planning board determine that the proposal meets the criteria for a secret type 2 action pursuant to secret part 617.5, sub C, sub 7, and no further environmental review is required.
Been moved and seconded. that the planning board determined the proposal meets the criteria for a secra type 2 action pursuant to secra part 617.5 sub C sub 7, and no further environmental review is required. Call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
I move that the planning board grant conditional site plan approval for Ready Coffee LLC, subject to the following. Respond to comments of the planning board and those received from town departments and agencies, and said responses to be reviewed by the planning department as to adequacy and completeness, inclusive of, but not limited to the following, 1 through 10.
And we're adding 11, so receipt of variances from ZBA prior to chairman's signature.
And
Area variances.
Area variance.
Yes, okay, yes.
are you in mid, I don't want to interrupt you if you're in mid-vote or delivery.
Yeah, well, let us finish.
Okay.
That's good.
Second?
Got a second on that?
Second.
Okay. So the planning board moves that it's been moved and seconded that the planning board grant conditional site plan approval for Ready Coffee LLC, subject to the following, and respond to the comments of the planning board and those received from town departments and agencies, and said response to be reviewed by the planning department as to adequacy, completeness, and inclusive of, but not limited to, 1 through 11, 11 being the getting the area variances from the ZBA. And I don't know who put this line. This is kind of new, but I like it because it kind of includes saying everything that's been talked about this evening and notes that were taken that would be included in the. So that's good. And whoever added that. So anyway, call the question. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Yes.
I was only going to say we were a little proactive. We did bring material.
Yes, that's next.
Oh, sorry, okay, I didn't.
Great. So now we will conduct an architectural review. So if you have materials and colors of the.
Yeah, Scott, do you have the?
So at the last minute, we were able to assemble a materials board, but we had one. And it wasn't here, so we took the most, which I actually was a little freaked out when I saw the photo earlier in the hallway because it looked so real. So we do have a photo of the materials board, but it's represented as the exact same colors and
Okay.
You know. But I understand if that's not sufficient. We just tried our best at the last minute.
Thanks.
Actually, we probably have a very large supply of this and brick and block downstairs. You could probably build a whole building.
Yeah. My office, I have stacks of like material
You can,
boxes.
yeah, I don't need one if you need to, yeah, that's fine. Did you? Here, we'll-
Just take a look at yours.
Yeah. you-
Trash enclosure.
Decorative
To Peter.
versus just cinder block.
No, it's okay.
Pacific West.
That's the trash enclosure block.
Southwest. You know, the yellowish and the
So if you're looking at the rendering in your package, my slides are now in the back, I apologize. Brick is obviously brick. There's a wood trim element below the windows to give it some warmth, and you can see that here. This is a color representation of the natural cement stucco that will be around the side and back of the building. The dark gray here is the metal canopy, which is lit underneath. Oh, thank you, yeah. And there are two glass samples. And actually this rendering is accurate in this respect. The upper windows are darker, slightly darker. They have I'm going to get the terminology wrong, but there is sunlight that comes in at a low angle late in the day, and the way the kiosk is oriented necessitated using a slight, it won't look all that different, but it creates a solar shade for the employees late in the day because of the way the kiosk is oriented facing west.
Right, that makes sense. They took that into consideration. And I assume the top of the building, the air conditioning, et cetera, is being shielded by the part above the back roof?
Correct. Most of the equipment in the in the building is remote condenser. That equipment is on top, and this parapet is designed to hide and make it easy to service.
I'm okay with it. Anybody, any questions, comments? I move we accept the architecture as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And again, we appreciate the courtcy of having us go first. Thank you.
No, no problem. I appreciate your coming to Poughkeepsie, as I said, and work with staff to get the comments and the things that we talked about tonight under, agreement and all that, and then go forth and get the plans in. We'll get them signed and get a building permit.
Gotta go to the ZBA first.
Right after that.
Right after.
We'll get you open by, I don't know, April 15th.
That stopwatch will be.
I don't need a stopwatch.
And I'm just gonna give these to
I'm
Kevin.
gonna go for the pace.
Yes, how long is it take from Town Center?
Pretty good.
This little building.
I've never seen it.
Cool.
Okay, McDonald Heights, Town Center, Eastdale Village. Right, the next? Yes. Plan review. This, SECRA adoption of findings for a proposed mixed-use development consisting of up to 390 residential dwelling units in apartments and townhouses, 85,000 to 185,000 square feet of commercial and non-residential space, recreational amenities and associated parking and utilities, 928, 932, 935, and 936 Dutchess Turnpike and Victory Lane, Zone MHC, McDonald Heights Center, IH Heavy Industrial District, 60.87 acres. The FEIS for a type 1 action was accepted as complete on January 18, 2018. Meadowview Properties LLC, Kirchhoff Properties LLC, and Industrial Retro LLC owns. Good evening. Okay, we're here to talk about the findings. What did I do with my papers?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Jeff Kane, Kirchhoff Properties. And Richard Rang, also Kirchhoff Properties. I'm not sure how you'd like to proceed. I think that in the intro that you read, as this project has been in front of the board for the last few months, we've proceeded through actually for more than a year now, through the scoping session, through the DEIS, and through the FEIS, and we're now at the review of the findings, which will culminate the seeker review for the project. I believe board and staff have had opportunity over the last couple of weeks to review the draft findings, and we are here to see if there are questions or comments about the findings. As again, they've been prepared by your consultant. And so I don't know if there's another presentation that we could make, or again that you have questions that we could answer. Thank you.
I think we're okay. Eric?
Sure. I think the town's consultant, PHB, who prepared the FEIS, also prepared draft findings, which are the culmination of seeker review and lay out the framework and the parameters for mitigation of any impacts or identification of parameters for development for subsequent site plan approval, which is why the earlier item for site plan was adjourned. So they prepared the findings. There were recently, the board got a draft of those findings, and then only in the last few days, there were some substantial changes with regard to the traffic in negotiation with DOT. And consultants and staff work to incorporate all of those changes and consultations with the DEC, with the DOT into the draft finding statement in order to allow the project to move forward if the board chooses. So there is a fair amount of new material in the finding statement that you received tonight. Most of it we did discuss at the field trip meeting, but I'll invite VHB maybe to run through an overview of the draft findings, and maybe hit upon any of the significant items or issues that the board has been interested in, and then you can ask questions about it.
Okay, great. And I think primarily came down to the traffic
Yes.
was the biggest thing, yes.
Pass this over to Alana pretty quickly, dealing with the traffic. But I just wanted to touch base on a couple of things. We specifically made sure that the findings was flexible so that you can finalize the details through site plan approval. Also, we specifically, one of the things in the DEIS that was still undetermined at that point, in which we made sure we put in both options into the finding statement, was dealing with the wastewater. There was an option of either expanding the current wastewater filtration plant as well as also doing a connection through Lutheran Care Center. So again, both options were analyzed through the EIS process. Both will not have a significant environmental impact, and both are still options in the finding statement depending upon how the final site plan approval takes place. I will turn this over to Alana now to talk a little bit about the changes or recent amendments to the traffic.
Great, thank you, Valerie. So the inclusion of the traffic portion of the finding statement has been a lengthy back and forth process with DOT. Many meetings, lots of months of work in order to get to the point where we have a finding statement that the town and that the DOT are comfortable with. I think the primary point to make is that the finding statement does recommend installation of a traffic signal at the main site access. What it does do, though, is it removes the boulevard that was going to be on both sides of the roadway. So it's going to be a typical four-leg intersection with traffic signal control and with accommodation for pedestrians, transit, and all of that will be permitted through DOT. But that was the biggest point that the two parties really needed to agree upon, and so that's good. We're set to go on that one. The next kind of major improvement that goes along with the mitigation is replacing the traffic signal at the Barnes and Victory Drive location. That traffic signal is going to be completely replaced. And there will be vehicle connections from the site to Concord Village Drive. This has been part of the proposal for quite some time. It allows vehicles entering and exiting that area to come to the traffic signal through the site, allowing for easier movements entering and exiting. There's also a vehicle connection to Victory Lane, also allowing vehicles from the site or from the Victory Lane area to kind of go back and forth and utilize the different traffic control at the site. In addition to what was evaluated in the traffic evaluation, which was really primary study area intersections, Cherry Hill Drive, DeGarmo, Barnes, and the site access, and then on up to a couple of unsignalized intersections to the north. Mitigation has been recommended for each of those locations. It involves things like providing adaptive traffic signal control, providing full communications between the signals themselves, and making sure that as the project is built and developed, which will take several years to happen, that these mitigation measures come online at the same time that the project grows, so that you won't necessarily feel as much of the impact with the increased traffic, because those mitigation measures will be implemented to kind of improve corridor operations as the project grows. But in addition to those intersections that were identified as specifically evaluated as part of the study, there are some external intersections that project traffic will still touch. Vehicles farther out on Route 55, farther north on south on 44. So what was agreed upon with New York State DOT was to do some additional mitigation kind of outside of that core study area, because those additional mitigations will continue to help the corridor function better as traffic continues to grow a little bit. And that again includes providing some adaptive traffic signal controls at the intersection. What that just means is that the traffic signal is snappier, so that it responds in real time to what's going on, so that it's if there's a delay on one approach, it'll help mitigate that immediately in real time. So it just makes the traffic signal more responsive to what's actually occurring. There's also going to be some locations where some some vehicle detection needs to be replaced or needs to be added, that will also occur as part of this finding statement, and also some accommodations for pedestrians at some different locations. There's some upgrades that need to be made at some of the push buttons in the corridor there right now. What is being asked is to put audible pedestrian push buttons out so that they're usable for all users. But as I said, the primary one was really getting that traffic signal at the main site access and having that agreement with DOT. So I can certainly answer any questions, but that's the bulk.
Okay. Very diplomatically presented, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I just don't want to overlook the fact that the finding statement does also encompass all of the other aspects of the development in conformity with the town center intent of the McDonald Heights Center District, which did also form the basis for a lot of the discussion with DOT. That area is presently not highly developed. This is the first town center that in the town 2007 adopted plan that is moving forward towards implementation. And so it was to be expected, and DOT was expecting there to be an increase in traffic and congestion along the corridor. So the project and the environmental review looked at the impacts in that context and in that framework. And the EIS process has reviewed the results, and if you agree, you accepted the FEIS recently and agreed that it addressed all of those issues. Tonight, if you agree with the findings, it would conclude that all of those changes to create a town center at that location would not have a significant adverse impact.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Start with Rocco, anything?
No, I'm fine at this time.
Thank you.
Just want to say of this project, I went down the list of the McDonald Heights zoning district, and the district purposes, there's listed 10 purposes of the district, and this project kind of hits all 10. So I think it'll be a good project to meet the intent of this, or master plan, as well as the zoning. I did have one question on the traffic. We do have pedestrian crossings there, and sometimes they're not pedestrian. So if there is a pedestrian phase or not a pedestrian phase, that means all the signals in the corridor will kind of keep aligned to keep the traffic flowing through.
That's correct. So the two that would be most important to be coordinated are the Victory Lane and the site itself. Those are close enough that coordination is going to be very important between the two of those. So they will be, as long as there's no, like you said, a pedestrian that pushes the button and kind of adjusts the traffic signal timing. Otherwise, yes, those two will function together.
Okay. Thanks. That's all I have right now.
Ben? Nothing. Peter?
Just a couple of quick comments. A couple of months ago, we received a letter from the DOT. They expressed concerns about a model that had been used. They're concerned primarily about internal traffic and using that to mitigate traffic flow on the road. And I thought they had a pretty good point. I went to the study that they referenced, and I read it, and it made a lot of sense to me. You went back and met with them, and you came to an agreement. When I read it, I was surprised because I think it's far-reaching. I think we have projects that come before us. We want to approach them with a balance. And you don't have to comment on this. I'm just giving you I'm just editorializing. But I think there was a lot of overreaching here when you look at the scope of work that they're requiring you to do. And we want to encourage development. We want, like I said, we want to have balance. And when I look at this, I've looked at hundreds of agreements between individuals, businesses, governments, government agencies. And you always try to see a sense of fairness. And when I looked at this, I was surprised. The only other two things I had here were with the recreation land that you're setting aside. Just keep in mind that in the future, you appear to have an ample amount of land set aside based on the requirements that are established by the town. We want to know, there is a certain amount of floodplain involved in the areas that you're going to dedicate to the town, probably going to ask you at some point in the future to try to determine exactly how much of that land is within that floodplain. And the last thing is you are really at odds in several areas with the Arlington Fire Department. Some of your responses you don't agree in certain areas, and probably at some point in time, we're going to ask you to come together with them and try to find some common ground.
If I may, we've actually had several meetings with the Arlington Fire Department to talk about each of their comments, and we believe that we've actually addressed them all, and we believe that they're satisfied with the way we've addressed them. So.
Terrific. And finally, you mentioned the findings are flexible. After reading the findings, I have to agree with you. I think the findings, the way they were put together, gives everybody a chance to really come to a good final product.
Should it be?
Thank you, Pete. Well said. Nicole?
Hi. I had a couple, actually. There was a question of decrease in parking. Is that going to happen or no? Because there was a conversation of decrease in parking this way. There was more green space for the residents and whatnot.
We've looked at the site plan very carefully with respect to the parking demands, and we were involved in other residential rental communities as well as other commercial sites with specific uses. And at the moment, with the uses that we're proposing on the site, we actually feel that we are adequately parked. We don't believe we're overparked. Certain of the commercial users have certain demands with respect to how much parking they need.
Right.
Particularly, we have some medical office users that are going to be on the site that have very specific needs with respect to parking. We looked to see if there were areas that we might be able to land bank and then determine whether or not we needed to come back and develop those once the need arose. Really couldn't identify any. The parking is distributed fairly well throughout the site. There are a few areas that are a little light on parking that we think we'll be able to actually improve thanks to the DOTs, making us get rid of the central island between the entries. It gave us a little opportunity to try and improve some of the parking for some of those users that are going to be along the Route 44 frontage. So at this point, we don't see too many opportunities to reduce the amount of parking based upon our experience.
Okay, thank you.
Brian?
I'm all set right now. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm good.
That's right.
The only other question I had was, it's gonna be all reconfigured, significant changes based on the boulevard going away and stuff. When do you think you're coming back with? We have to start addressing site plan issues.
Right, it's not as significant. I don't want people to think that the entire site plan changed. It really is just at that main entrance, the buildings, as you turn off of 44 into the site, the buildings are going to be closer together, and that main, it was a 50-foot wide boulevard, disappears. That 50 feet is redistributed to the behind those two buildings on either side of the street.
So you wind up having it more like a regular town street where it has street parking and
yes,
wide
it'll look like
sidewalks
right.
Yes, on-street parking, wide sidewalks. We're actually working now to do the detailed configuration of how that's going to work. Through the corridor, and we have some ideas that. As hard as it was for us to give up that boulevard because that was program space, we anticipated it being an important part. We think we've actually got some ideas on how to still make it a nice feature through the entry as you come into the project sites.
But the other answer to your question is next meeting.
Yep, okay, great.
Right.
You're going to get creative, and you may create a new benchmark.
Start the site plan issues.
I think positive.
That all said, I move that the planning board.
It does appear that in the findings have been going back and forth between various consultants, staff, and other personnel over the last 48 hours. And among the items that were proposed by the applicant with DOT were also of great interest to the Arlington Fire District, which was a number of preemption devices at certain intersections. That's part of the proposed package. Those particular items did not make it into the final finding statement before you, so I'll propose that, I'm going to recommend that the board include an amendment to the findings to include the preemption devices that were offered as part of the traffic package to DOT.
Is that acceptable to the applicant?
Yes, it is. Yes.
Eric, are you sure they aren't just in a different section? I know they weren't in the traffic section.
Well, let's just put it in there, and if they're in two
Yeah,
places,
right,
then we'll just make sure that it's corrected, that they appear once, because they don't need to be preempted twice.
I move that the planning board adopt the attached resolution dated March 15th, 2018, adopting the attached finding statements dated March 15th, 2018, with an amendment for the addition of the preemptive devices.
Yep. Second. Moved and seconded. So I'll read what you wrote. That the planning board adopt the attached resolution dated March 15, 2018, adopting the attached finding statement dated March 15, 2018, and so on, and also add a section for the preemptive devices. Okay. Call a question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I just want to take a moment to thank the
Just
board.
just before you start, I was thinking that there may be one of those traffic mitigation, what'd she call it?
Calming.
The text of the traffic, what do you call it?
Oh, the adaptive
The
signals?
adaptive signals? You might have missed one out there in Corning somewhere, but anyway. That's just my little joke.
I want to take an opportunity to thank the board, staff, and the board's consultants. As you know, we approach seeker a little differently in this process than you're used to, where the town actually hired the seeker consultant to write the environmental impact statement. I feel that it worked very well. I think we came together with, we were able to share ideas through the whole process, and came together to give the town center that they had envisioned for this site. And I just wanted to thank everybody. Eric had mentioned the last 48 hours, and I think he meant that literally. In the last 48 hours, he's been working on finalizing this document, as have other staff members and consultants. But I just wanted to thank you all again for the opportunity to be able to work with everyone, so.
You're welcome. And you know what? We're anxious to get onto the site plan, as I'm sure you are.
Yep.
And to get things going. And I'd like to thank our consultants who did a very good job and very patient, and everybody on the board for being so patient with this project. So let's keep it going and see if we can get a site plan that works for everybody.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Marist College, welcome. McCann Center Edition 2.
Need the screen.
Planning Board to declare lead agency site plan and coastal consistency review for the construction of a 64,000 gross square foot addition to the north and west side of the McCann Recreation Center, including renovations to locker rooms, racquetball courts inside existing McCann Center, demolition of existing fitness center, relocation of water, sewer, gas, and electric. And also, site improvements with traffic circulation, parking modifications and expansion, pedestrian access adjustment, site lighting and drainage modifications also require a variance from the town, and easements from both town and city of Poughkeepsie. 11 to 21 Champagne Way, 37 to 41 Half Moon Walk, 5 Edvard Beach Drive, zoned IN Institutional District, WD 1 Waterfront District 1, 16.94 acres, unlisted action, Marist College owner. Justin, when did you sneak in?
I snuck in.
Good, glad to see you.
I'm
John?
just hoping to get the AV working.
Yeah, that's always it.
Do I have to do anything, Carol? I'm plugged in. Yeah.
There you go.
Probably just warming.
Oh, there we go.
It's thinking.
You can turn.
That's starting there, yeah.
Move that way.
Oh, yeah.
Come on.
Good.
Just gonna push over here a little bit.
What about that panel?
Duplicate.
Oh, okay.
Turn out the first set of lights.
Tomorrow.
John, turn out the first, turn up to the left.
No, the left.
That left.
North, south.
In the dark.
Not a good week for drink.
Yeah, do you know how to do it?
Sure. I'll give the presentation.
Oh, you can do the
Carol, there's something with that touch screen.
Well, I'm not sure if it's going through.
In the back.
Just kind of moves that way, or I'll push up a little.
They said it was working.
Isn't somebody coming in the back or no?
Oh, you have it on yours.
I have it on mine, right?
It's not projecting,
Say it's projecting. Duplicate,
I
right?
mean, you were there. I just.
The one that's in the big picture.
I know one. Oh, what does that say there now?
It should probably go on that menu if you can get it to computer, it might work.
To move down, how do you move the menu?
No.
What Bruce said. That kind of refers. That's really all I was going to add into what he said.
No, it's there. Brian, don't play, because I think our tech person's in back. If we play with
Yeah, because it was showing that it was not on the podium.
Here we go. What's that?
It's an HDMI.
Yep, that's what I just moved
Oh,
it
you
to.
don't?
We're good.
Justin, I know sometimes, is there a controller in Alt-T you have to press?
Well, there's,
to-
you know, Windows P and you push duplicate, that's what I normally do. And I've done that. It's not,
Right.
I don't know. You want to check
do I pull it out, push it back in?
I don't know which one.
Try.
Yeah, maybe reset it.
Is this the right thing?
Yeah.
What's that? What is
This is
that?
an audio code. It's an audio.
Situation.
I mean, I did bring paper because of these kind of issues.
HDMI, right? 'Cause
Yeah.
That's what it's.
Yeah, it should work.
We need a staff training for things that this keeps happening.
Function F8, you can try that.
Oh, he
did it last month.
He doesn't do it with me. He only does the several ones.
That's a VGA. I don't think this has a VGA. It's HDMI. I'm good.
Then I don't.
I'm not literate at that.
No, and they got IT guys, everything was working today, Mark.
You go to duplicate.
Did these buttons mean anything in here? Say press?
No, that's like retract.
Yeah, somebody should.
Might work.
I can go with paper
Overnight.
if you want. That's why I brought up paper.
No, it's just, once it upgraded, we need staff training.
She just like rebooted it in there. So it's not.
How to do it.
Mark Fink. And
Well, it sounded like they just got, oh, there you go.
There you go.
Oh, we had it for seconds.
Oh, it's
Yay.
there.
Yeah, we're up.
there we
Yeah.
go.
All right, Sandy, good.
Up and running.
Got it.
What was the secret? You don't know?
To the top,
Hit it just right.
Somebody prayed.
all right.
John, should I start? Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Justin Butwell with Marist College. I'm the Director of Physical Plant. With me is John Andrews, our Site and Civil Engineer. I'm going to give a brief presentation about an overview of the project, and John will go into the details of the site plan. So on this project, we're going to be replacing the 1997 Fitness Center addition. It's a 25,000 square foot building that has some structural issues, so we're going to demolish that. In its place, we're going to put a new 60,000 square foot fitness center. There will be an improved pedestrian connection to the campus. If you've been to the McCann Center, you want to go to the middle of the campus, you'll notice you have to walk through the parking lot. We're going to correct that with a very prominent sidewalk, and we're going to add abundant bicycle racks as bicycles have become more popular on campus. Parking spaces in the McCann lots at the end of the project will increase by approximately 23 spaces. And John has worked on a more logical layout and improved the handicap access, both as far as proximity to the door and number of spots. Key spaces in the project include a weight room for the Division I athletes, a new cafe and lobby entrance, a fitness room that's probably twice the size of the existing, 2 recreational basketball courts, an indoor running track, a multi-purpose sports court, which is really volleyball and a half a basketball court, and multi-purpose rooms for things like yoga and Pilates and that sort of thing. So that picture that I have up is the 1997 addition that will be demolished, and in its place will be the new building. There's a rendering of the new building. This slide kind of shows you how the new building overlays to the 1997 addition. So you get a sense of where it's going to go in that space. There's the site plan. I'm going to breeze past this slide because John has a much more detailed presentation on that. This is the first floor plan. I'm just going to indicate the key spaces. You have the basketball courts that I had mentioned. There's the sports court. There's the Division I weight room, and up front, there's the front entrance with the lobby and the cafe. Second floor, there's your indoor running track and your fitness rooms and your multipurpose rooms. Site logistics. This is going to be, a tight spot for construction. So we put the project office trailers up by Leo Hall up the hill there, so they're not taking up parking. The yellow line is our proposed site construction fence. The red, I should have indicated, is the new building. The new or temporary entrance to the building will be through the arena, which is pointed out there, and then the blue oval will be a tent structure that will be put in place temporarily for a weight training for the Division I athletes. So that'll be there during construction. And during construction, we think we're going to lose about 50 parking spaces in those lots, and contractor parking will be off-site, most likely down by the boathouses, and they'll have to be bussed up during the workday because we don't have enough spots around that area to park them. I'm going to end with the rendering and turn it over to John.
Thank you very much. I guess we can turn the lights back on and Mr. Weissman can return to his seat. Maybe he doesn't want to. He volunteered to do my presentation for me, so. And again, for the record, my name is John Andrews. I'm with the firm of Rohde, Soika and Andrews, located in Poughkeepsie. We are the site engineers for Marist College. We've worked on a number of projects, and now that Mr. Weissman is back, we'll kind of give you the overview. If you're familiar, this leads to the south entrance at Marist. You come in, you go down. This is the existing McCann Center. The baseball field here is on the corner. The addition is this shaded area here. It's kind of L-shaped. It is going to, if you've been inside the front entrance of the McCann Center, the existing front entrance is right about here. So we're creating a new front entrance. As you saw, it's going to have new entryway, new cafe in the front. Everything else in here will essentially remain. The building wraps around. There's a little utility corridor here. So basically, the building is going to have a new entry. The architects decided that they would like to reorientate the whole parking lot. So this parking lot is shifting to the west, about 10 feet, a little less. And as Justin said, there's a couple things we tried to accommodate here. One is, if you were ever to go out there today, this is the main campus up here. This is Donnelly Hall, the other area. So you have two ways that students come down. Right now, there's a very steep set of stairs. They come down to the parking lot. There's a walkway here. And to get, believe it or not, from these 2 points to the McCann Center, you have to walk through the parking lot. And if you've ever been there, it's an interesting exercise. So the key thing that we tried to do is kind of bring these two together. So we're putting a new set of stairs, a little shorter set of stairs, a little wider set of stairs. We're creating a gathering point kind of high up. This is going to probably be 20 feet above the parking lot. And it kind of meanders down. This will be handicapped accessible. They'll come together. And then there is now going to be a full sidewalk all the way down leading to the front of McCann. That sidewalk will be accommodated. It's going to be about 8.5 feet wide, typical Marist type sidewalk through there. And then it leads right to the main entrance. We're doing some reconfiguring here. The different shadings, This is a patterned surface, whether it's the brick and bluestone that you've seen elsewhere, whether it's a patterned concrete, we haven't worked that out yet. But we'll be reorientating. If you remember when we did the McCann Center basketball addition at the rear, we had to put in emergency access for fire trucks all the way around the building. We're going to be reorientating that a little bit. We're also, I think if you recall, there's a monument to the Marist brothers. We're going to give that a little more prominent position there, put a little circular sitting area, probably some benches and some other things. That's also one of the areas of primary egress during basketball games. So it kind of gives people a chance to get out of the building and maybe wait for somebody that wasn't right with them. So we're kind of trying to improve that. The parking area, if you've ever been out there, there's no islands, there's no anything. It's a pretty much a free-for-all. And so what we've decided to do in reorienting it, we've added raised islands throughout there. It gives us the opportunity to break it up with some green space, gives us an opportunity to create and kind of corral our students, and the same go in this direction. We're adding some islands, giving some landscaping. This main island here, I think you're all familiar with that sea of asphalt and concrete that's out in front of McCann. We're trying to make that a little friendlier, and so we created a landscaped area here. That's in development. It may have flagpole, it may have some other things, but we maintain the bus go around. And what we propose is it's going to be 25 foot, but I think the architects are still deciding. I think they want it to be one way. So that will enable us to do is have a bus come in, be able to stage, drop people off, and then cars can still go around it. But we believe we've enhanced the drivability of this whole area. You'll be coming in, you kind of go down and around. If you're familiar with this end of the campus, it kind of ends, you look like you're right at the end of the river. So we're going to put an access to the back. So now you'll have a complete, well-defined loop around the building. Net result here is we're going to end up with an increase of somewhere around 23 parking spaces. We're losing some, trying to create green space, et cetera, but we're going to build a retaining wall along the back here. We end up picking up 23 spaces. That's a plus for us. But one of the other things is, again, if you've been there, most of the handicap spots are kind of here. They're kind of downhill.
I think you're dead there.
Sorry.
It's all right.
Okay, there's a break in the action.
Sorry.
Eat better.
Break away for commercial.
There you go, sir.
Thank you.
And we're back.
Back on. Let me see, where was I?
Full loop around the building.
Loop around the building.
Loop around the building.
Handicap parking.
Do-si-do.
Handicap parking.
Handicap parking, thank you. If you've been down there, handicap parking has been down here. It's the parking lot down there is a little bit on the atrocious side. The number's a little light, and you really can't get. It's not a good trip if you're in a wheelchair or even if you have trouble walking. So what we've done is actually move those handicap parking spaces up to this location. The shift enabled us to do that. It's virtually at the same elevation as the front entrance now. We've increased the number. I think we've added 4 or 6 spaces here. And now a handicapped person would have a direct shot right to the entrance. Easy to accommodate. We think it's better. It also enhances our ability to event manage. If you're ever out there for an event and had to use a handicapped parking space, you are in God's country, to be honest with you. By moving them up here and putting some additional parking spaces adjacent to them, it gives our folks at event management a little better way to handle handicapped folks and get them in and out of the building in a little more efficient manner.
Will you be increasing the number of handicap spots?
Yes, we did. 4 to 6.
Okay, good. Good.
Other than that, I think those are the, there is a walkway. If you've ever been down there, there's a gravel walkway. We're going to improve that. Couple oddities. We do need one variance. We have it's a side yard variance the way it's been done. All the other buildings had a variance as well, but side yard is 50 foot. We're at 14'6" here. Now, you also heard that we need easements from the town and the city. The wastewater treatment plant is down here, and the property line for the city runs here to here, and then for the town runs here to up here. Traditionally, for years, we've been on somebody else's property. Nobody's really looked at it, no harm, no foul, because we're at the top of the hill, everybody else is at the bottom of the hill. Well, now that we're looking to formalize this, what we're going to be seeking is an easement from the town to allow us to be there, and then an easement from the city to allow us to be there. Just to put it in paperwork and make sure we close that opening. That's kind of, everybody's seen and kind of looked the other way for years while we're trying to close it as part of this. Couple other interesting things that kind of relate to our schedule and how this needs to be built. As you know, the McCann Center's kind of been added on years and years, and it dates way back. The utilities, for whatever the reason, when the 1997 addition was put in, were kind of left in place, and the addition was built around some of the utilities. So they actually physically run through the building. In order to demolish that building, what we have to do is get the utilities to run out and around. So we're going to have to alter the water line, get that to come out and around. We're going to have to alter the electric line to get that to come out and around. But even more complicated is, you'll see a transformer that's back here. That transformer is going to need to get relocated. But that transformer also serves Leo, Sheehan, and Byrne at the top of the hill, because the power runs right back through the addition and goes up the hill. So we've got to resurface those. And then the gas runs through the building footprint in the back here, so we have to relocate the gas. So before we can even start demolition, there's going to be a major utility relocation that's part of this. The other thing is, and I think Justin touched on it with the site logistics plan, we had some discussions at length with Eric and your building department. The McCann Center, for all intents and purposes, is going to stay in service while this work is being undertaken. We've done that elsewhere on campus. You know we've been pretty successful in doing that, but it does take a lot of planning and logistics on our part and a lot of cooperation from you folks. So the logistics plan that Justin showed you, we believe will enable us to allow the main portion of this to function while we are actually building the addition. We're going to put some temporary measures in. We're going to utilize the tent. But what we're going to essentially do is separate with fencing, as we've done elsewhere, the construction site from the balance of the campus. The other key thing is to keep the parking lots going. So we're going to have to stage our work so that we keep the parking lots functional. And we believe we can do that. We believe we're probably going to have to work closely with planning and the building department to accommodate it. But we think that because we're kind of jumped out in front of it, we'll be able to pull it off. We did it with the student center. You all know that. Everybody had concerns about being built in the middle of campus with everything going on around it. That went marvelously. And we're employing the same techniques here, and we think we can pull it off. But the net result here is we have a more efficient parking lot. We have a pedestrian corridor that truly links the McCann Center to Marist College campus. We have good traffic flow around the building, and we feel we'll have an enhanced presence for the McCann Center with this new addition in the front.
Okay. Thank you. Justin, you want to add anything to that?
No, I think John did a good job.
Okay. I like what I've heard, especially the fixing the parking and the encroachment on other properties and all that. That's good to take care of all that in one fell swoop. It's a discussion. So, anybody has a question, you can just chime in or let me know.
I don't really have a question. I'm Marist alumni, so I know how dangerous it was walking through that parking lot with no sidewalk and having to get to McCann through potholes and everything else. So I love this project. I think it's going to be great for the students specifically. so.
I think you answered most of my questions with the presentation. I mean, it looks like overall the parking is going to be closer to the entrance because I always felt like you had to walk a football field to get from the parking to the main entrance. So
that seemed to be a big consensus of folks, is to try to get it closer to that front door.
I did have a question of that. I assume you're going to try to do it over the summer as much as possible, but what kind of time frame will the temporary entrance be used? Like how many months or?
It would be through the entirety of construction. So we're going to demolish, if everything goes as planned, we'll demolish and do the utility relocations this summer. We'll have the tent in place by the fall semester and the temporary entrance in place. So the site gets turned over to the construction crews and they're going to be working within that fence line that I showed, the yellow fence line. And the entrance will be active, anywhere between 12 and 18 months.
Okay. Didn't know if you needed it during the demolition phase or not, since that was part of it.
Definitely during the demolition phase.
Okay, need it for the whole thing.
If you notice, just to point it out, this bump out here, if you've gone in the front entrance, that's the Hall of Fame room. So if you see the entrance to the Hall of Fame room is on the side, we're butting up tighter to the old McCann building. So that front entryway, as you kind of walk in those doors and go to where the desk kind of is, that's part of the demolition exercise. So there will be a clear demarcation inside the building. So we're not just taking down that fitness center, we're taking down a portion of the front of the McCann Center.
That explains it.
If you're in the lobby, there's gonna be a wall built, so you can't even see out the current entrance. Because that's the construction site.
Thanks.
So your timeframe, go back to it again, you're gonna look to start when? At the end of the semester?
Our hope is to start this summer with demolition, have most of that done before the students get back in the fall, start foundations in September.
I remember a conversation somewhere, and I don't remember what's the status of this building, and it's kind of, from a novice approach, falling into, or
We
tilting?
have Thornton Tomasetti, our structural engineer, review it on a quarterly basis. They just reviewed it last month and said it was stable.
Okay. So you'll probably close it right towards the end of the semester?
Yeah, there was a major conference on the first week of June, which we need the space for that. After that, if all approvals are in place, we'll start the utility relocations and demolition.
Okay. And then that tent, can you just talk a little bit about it? What is it? What style? I mean, how fixed is it?
It's similar to well, we have to figure those details out, but it's similar in style to the just a major tent that we have on campus, the white tent. I don't know if you've been to an event under that. It needs to have a snow load structure to it because it's going to be there through the winter period, so it's different.
Okay.
And I have it oval shaped because I may want to reuse it after the project in between building C and D of the new North Campus, for events over there and things.
Okay. And you'll use heat? You'll use heaters inside?
Yeah, there's going to be heaters. It'll be hooked up to heaters. It'll have glass doors.
Okay.
We did a temporary dining hall at one point when we did a student center. We used the same type of structure.
Okay.
That structure was not snow load rated, so we need a new one.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
That was my question. Questions, anybody? Peter, anything?
Andy had some comments. Again, the plans are preliminary. John knows he's got to prepare the stormwater pollution prevention plan. The drainage seemed to be the biggest item here, but again, we'll work closely with John's office. And a lighting plan, just typical things that you would see as the plans progress a little further. So
We were afforded his comments, and we have looked at them, but, all the site lights are laid out and shown on the site plan We haven't done the final lighting plan because we're.
Yeah, the
waiting-
photometrics.
The photometric, acknowledge that's required. Stormwater management, we've been going back and forth with the architects regarding green roofs and a few other things, so there will be a green roof component to this.
Oh,
We aren't sure how big, and actually, even though it looks like we're doing a lot, our net increase in impervious surface is relatively small. So what we're gonna probably end up doing is some bioretention areas around the building, as we've done elsewhere, that end up being our landscaping features. If you remember, students, Natural Science and Allied Health has that nice looking one on the south side. We've got a couple up at the new dorms. We're gonna follow the same concept here, and they'll probably be putting the green spaces around the building. We've been trying to finish some floor elevations and some staircase elevations, so we get the final grading so that we know what areas we have available. But we acknowledge Peter's requirement, and we are actively working on it. We just need to fine tune some details, and we'll get them into you.
Great.
Yeah, I got one thing.
Sure.
The western end of the new parking area and the road that goes around, is that going to require any significant fill? You said you're at the top of the hill there.
In point of fact, no, because we didn't, right now, if you were to go up there, the existing road runs just right along that line. So we're not going any farther. If you see, there's a kind of a series of things here. If you drive out there, you'll see a series of boulders at about 15 foot off the edge of the existing pavement. We're staying right parallel to the existing edge of pavement. There's one area in through here where we're going off the pavement, but there's already water lines and a few other things through there, so we don't have to do anything slope-wise. We're just going to stay right on top. We probably won't even have to clear any trees. We tried to stay as close to the existing pavement as possible.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, I don't know if you had to, so you don't have to deal with Metro North at all, because they're just tracks are just down the hill from that.
Right.
Thankfully, intervening between us and Metro North is the city on the south end and the town on the northern portion of it. So we get to deal with you folks, and then you can deal with Metro North.
Question?
I mean, you're eliminating the nice stairs to do Rocky exercise with, but other than that.
You're getting too old for it.
I'm getting too old for that anyway. Looks like a good plan.
Okay,
Thank you.
I move that the planning board declare its intent to be the lead agency to coordinate the environmental review of the proposed project as an unlisted action and authorize the planning department's circulation dated March 19th, 2018 of a notice of said intent, a copy of the EAF, and a copy of the application to the identified involved agencies.
Second.
Moved and seconded that the planning board declare its intent to be the lead agency to coordinate the environmental review of the proposed project as an unlisted action and authorize the planning department's circulation dated March 19th, 2018 of a notice of said intent, a copy of the EAF, and a copy of the application to the identified involved agencies. Call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
I move that the planning board defer further action on this application pending establishment of a lead agency and direct the applicant to respond to comments of the planning board and those received from the town departments and agencies, including but not limited to the following, 1 through 9.
It's moved and seconded that the planning board defer action on this application pending establishment of the lead agency and direct the applicant to respond to comments of the planning board and those received from town departments and agencies, including but not limited to the following, 1 through 7, and it says to respond in writing, of course. I call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Anything we can do to help you move this along, work with staff and Mike and his team, and zoning, and, we'll see what we can do to get a tight schedule. And
thank you.
But I know you did a good job with safety-wise with the other building, and I had to laugh because down in we go to Florida sometimes, and a lot of construction goes on down there, and parking is really tight, and they use a bus where they bus the workers in from a lot 3 or 4 miles away to the site. So we're coming to the big time, I guess. So whatever, good stuff.
Yeah, just to give you an idea of our schedule, we're not going to try to rush back by April. We've got a bunch of stuff here. What we'd like to do is take the time to get everything right and get it to you so that you will see us again in May.
Okay.
And hopefully, we will have everybody's concerns addressed. Eric has kindly offered to work with us, and now that you have Mike on board, we're going to welcome that. And of
Yeah,
course,
we'll work
Pete's
together.
office has always been accommodating. But just so you know, that's our intent, is to take the next couple months to get the questions all answered and get it right so that we don't have a lot of fooling around.
Good, that'll work, and of course, Kristen and Eric work together, so we got a little more help to help get some of these big projects going, so.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Two things. One is, I'm happy if you're available, we could set a meeting next week, if possible, and corral departments
Yes.
together to get you moving on that and get the next thing in. And also, the PowerPoint presentation you did to that, we occasionally get requests for follow-up on that. Can you just maybe send a PDF to Carol?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck. Okay. I'd just like to, if I could, under other business, just first, let me do this, I want to do a time extension, then we'll come back to built parcel, if that's okay. Industrial Retro LLC, lot line revision, time extension for an approved lot line revision for a proposal to convey a lot portion of 2.75 acres inclusive of a 50-foot access easement to the owner, which is the beneficiary of the easement, 15 Victory Lane, zoned IH Heavy Industrial District, 4.6 acres, 944 Dutchess Turnpike Zone, MHC, the McDonald Heights Center, 36.41 acres. It's an unlisted action. Industrial Retro LLC, Meadowview Properties LLC owner. I move the planning board grant a 90-day time extension of conditional lot line revision approval from March 16th, 2018 forward to June 14th, 2018.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Call a question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 670. Under other business, a discussion with Built Parcel 4 LLC and Built Parcel 5 LLC. Discussion regarding amendments to two site plans. Add a 16-unit apartment building with parking on parcel 791929 at Van Wagner Place, AKA Springside Neighborhood. Development site plan, Built Parcel 4 LLC. Add an 8-unit building consisting of live work lofts, concurrent with proposed rezoning to ATC, Arlington Town Center District on parcel 864945, used for parking for the 33 Arlington Avenue site plan, Built Parcel 5 LLC, 45 Springside Avenue and Van Wagner Road, zoned ATC, Arlington Town Center, an R20 residence, single family, 20,000 square feet, District 1.548 acres, Built Parcel 4 LLC and Built Parcel 5 LLC owners. And if anybody can translate that, you're good. So you're on. You got a PowerPoint? You have a,
Simple tonight.
simple tonight? Oh, okay.
Good evening. Thanks for letting us speak tonight on the informal basis to introduce what we're doing on the next, hopefully doing on the next phase here. I'm Stephen Tinkelman of Tinkelman Architecture and also the managing member of Built Parcel 345. And to my right is Chris Mansfield, who's a project architect and head of our VR technology in our office, or head of technology, and Jason Likwich is the project manager and architect on the far end. This is maybe the fourth or fifth time we've been in front of this board on this project, and I believe this is maybe the fourth phase, and so we're pleased to be back. This hopefully will be, not the last time we're back for additions to what we're doing. But just to give a little history, again, we started out moving into 25 Van Wagner with the idea that we just needed a new office for the firm, and this board was generous to let us move in when we didn't know really what we were doing with the whole site, and we fixed up the building and moved in, and everything else has evolved from there. From that day to where we are today, we have 7 buildings on the site. 5 of them have been restorations, renovations, adaptive reuses of existing structures, and there's 2 new buildings. We've built over 30,000 square feet of commercial space, and most of it's taken in with users such as Poughkeepsie and the Center for the Prevention of Child Abuse. The new building at 33 Arlington Avenue, which has a spin studio, a women's clothing boutique, a hair salon, Waddle and Swaddle, which moved from Raymond, Project More, which works with women that are coming out of incarceration. We have a woman photographer in our management companies there. And we have a couple more spaces that we'll fill. We just opened in the last month the Hudson Valley Healing Center, and if anybody's interested, there's a salt cave in their facility, which is a space made of pink Himalayan salt ceiling in the walls. Supposedly it has remarkable healing powers, and I can't speak on it, but it's a great space, and they're doing good business. And last, we have 27 filled apartments right now. So the response to what we've done to date has been good, and we're appreciative of that. What we're finding, though, is that to really create a sense of place here, which we're calling Van Wagner Place, is to try to intensify it and grow it. I failed on something that I think is material that we're still working on, which is I wanted food to be the center of this thing and to grow around that. And we've been close a couple times, and we're still talking now. And so we don't know whether it'll be in a new building that's on the property along 4455, which in the last year we've just been able to complete a long 2-year process with the state on buying the remaining parcel there. So we're now marketing that parcel, and that is where the 2 blue buildings are down there. So we're calling that the kind of the handle of the pork chop. And so we're excited about trying to find the right use there. We thought originally when we came here and rezoned the property, remember this is all BH, and through the effort of this board and the town board, it was rezoned Arlington Town Center. As was everything else we've done to date has been rezoned to Arlington Town Center. We posited a 4 or 5 story building on that site. I don't think that's going to happen. The parking is something that we're always being respectful for, and whatever the world is today, there's still though the parking is less than the ordinance in most cases, it's still the car is still used so much, and we'll maybe find a different world 5 years from now when electric driverless cars are out driving around, and it's coming because they're using them in Pittsburgh already, and so it's about time. So what we're here for, and again, we haven't finished. So what we're going to show you is just really concepts, but what the 3 of us have been working on is developing these 2 red buildings that you can see in the top of the model. We want to build more housing to have more people in the neighborhood, and we want to try a new housing project type, which is a work-live loft, which is a space that's about 1,200 square feet. It's a very large open space with tall ceilings, a lot of glass, and it allows someone to live there and just have it as a living environment, or if they want to have a home business for themselves, it would be appropriate for that. It could be for artists or something like that. And that's in the top building on the right up there. That structure is on a lot that's a half an acre. It currently has that parking lot constructed, so if you drive around, you can see the lot and the landscaping on the lower part of the lot. Thank you. It's not as fancy as having something up on the screen. And by the way, we're building a virtual reality model, which we'll have for the next presentation now that we can see the technologies here. And it's kind of an odd thing because a lot of this is already here, but then you can also go up and see the buildings that we're proposing, and you can walk around them and really get a sense of what this is all about. And we'll do that and build on it as we go forward, but it's a really dynamic experience, and it really helps us as designers. We're just not ready for tonight, so that's why we didn't want to.
I invited them all to your office.
And that is, anybody wants to come up, please do. But, so the lot that's there works as, spillover parking from 33 Arlington, which is the building across the street that has the multi-tenant in. It was the Rondat Electric that we put the 7 or 8 units in there. And was designed also with the idea that we would rezone that 33 Arlington and this site ATC. And in that requirement for the 8 units and the building that we currently have, in ATC would require 23 spaces, and for the commercial building, and 12 spaces for the apartments. So that would be 35 spaces. We have 50 there. You could also say that the BH requires a double amount of spaces, for 33, which is 46. So we would then be 8 spaces short, but there's also spaces on the street outside of the 50 that we created. We're finding out, though, that even in respect of your ordinance, that with the center house and Hilltop, if we can point those out on the other map. You got that on there. Where we built parking there, we're using about 1.2 spaces per unit, so we're actually under the ordinance, and we've been watching that carefully every month, since we opened that building, just to really understand, so that we're not building more or less, because it's just a sea of blacktop. Our parking lot, by the way, the main lot that most of our buildings use off of 4455, it seems perfectly balanced. We'll actually have some times when it's 100% full for an hour or two, and then sometimes there's 8 cars in there, but in the most times it really has adequate parking in there. So it seemed that we either got lucky or what have you, but that was built according to the Arlington Town Center requirements, and it's really working quite well. The new buildings in blue, of course, will require different parking, which is that conceptually we're showing that at the bottom over there. So just to finalize on that, if this makes sense, is we were in front of the town board last night to do a similar introductory committee of the whole conversation, which is, we have a bunch of projects up our sleeve, we just are not there yet, and so part of this is to grow organically as we have, which is why we've been here 4 times, and I don't know, I think Eric is almost like a partner on this thing, because he's worked so many times on the project with us, but so the plan of the request is to take 33 Arlington and that new parking lot site and rezone that to Arlington Town Center. The 33 won't change, even though it's geared up to become something else, which we'll talk about hopefully in the next 6 months or so when we come back. But we have some food things moving along. We'd like to build this year, if possible, both of these buildings. And, so we have some architecturals that we're beginning to, and we'll show you some ideas of what we're doing. We're going to also need to go to the zoning board for I think it's the zoning board, Eric, for the new work-live building, because the ATC only allows for 8 units there, because it's or 8 units per acre. We have a half an acre, and we're proposing 8 units on a half an acre. We feel that given the way we can landscape this and park it and all that the density is really a good thing. We want this to be kind of an urban hamlet, and so the density, which you can see that we have with Center House and Hilltop, has really worked for us, and people like the socialness of it. As part of what we're doing, we've committed to changing the intersection, which is to quiet it so that we're taking out the traffic light and putting in a 4-way stop, and that process, we still need town board approval, and that's underway, but it's been approved by this board last year, I believe. The other thing that we're doing, we started building sidewalks, and unfortunately the federal government is not giving us grant money for all the sidewalks that would really make this a great pedestrian neighborhood. So we've taken it upon ourselves, and everyone's been nice enough, is that these are small projects, and so we're trying to be really careful with all of our soft costs and all that, so that we can put the money into public improvements here, more sidewalks, so that when we're done with all of our projects, everything's going to be walkable here, and that's the goal for doing this. So that's a summary for those two lots. The westerly building, which is what we're calling the larger red building, is on a lot that's already zoned ATC. We have a contract on 43, which is, if you could point to that, Jay, which is Shelley Anderson's house. And what's really nice about that acquisition is it gives us a real nice approach into the back of the property, which would have been complicated with a lot of blasting and stuff if we didn't have that. So it's a real nice fit. What we're going to do with 43, her house, and 45, I don't know, but at some point in time, it could very well be that there'll be office buildings or they'll have some other kind of use in there. And we have abilities to park more. I mean, we're just showing you kind of the beginning of this plan. The other nice thing about those 16 units, what would make that a great place to live is the North Grand development, and I forgot that last night. I don't remember the name of it. You know the name of it?
Arlington Heights.
Arlington Heights has I guess there was part of the approval of that project is there's a large area that's never to be built on, which is behind the site. So the people that live in that building will really have the benefit of a real beautiful backyard because it's just all wooded and private back there. And at the same time, from their front windows, they get to see 44, 55 and such. So it's you get the best of both worlds.
Best of everything, huh?
We're going to need a variance also on the density here. We have 16 units. Given the land mass that we have, we're allowed to have 13 units, so it's really just a variance of 3. So it's less dense and such. We may ask for a variance, which will come up in the planning process, of pushing the building a little bit closer to the back. We were required to be 20 feet away. We may want to ask you for a positive recommendation to the zoning board to move it back 5 feet, because it'll give us a lot more capacity to have green space in the front and to soften that up and to create a nicer buffer between us and the 3 homes that are in front of that site, which you can, and it's part of being good neighbors. We are, looking at completely screening what we're doing so that they won't see cars. It'll be, both from coming in the driveway from Springside Avenue to when they park, there'll be no traffic or no headlights or anything like that. Mm-hmm. And we'll also landscape along that way. And we'll show you that, we have a bunch of options there. But again, it depends on whether you're in favor of, that 5-yard variance, would change the solution on that. The site itself, also just lends itself to, housing. There's probably no other use for it because, again, you have the neighbors, to the south of it. As part of our process, we're going to do outreach to all the adjacency property owners. So we'll, sit down with them and talk to them about, what we're doing. Again, a lot of the concerns that came up when we first started this process, like there was a concern about the traffic was going to be crazy and all that. Nothing has really changed. I mean, it's been wonderful. It's a really balanced daytime, nighttime thing. And the only thing, again, that I think that, we've been struggling with is we'd really like to have more food and activities here. We also want some outdoor park space, which, Jay, if you can show that triangular area above the blue building, we're still working on, having some public amenities there as we plan that building. So that's a long-winded introduction. I hope you don't mind all the chatter on it, but.
We'll show them some renderings.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Maybe Ready Coffee is interested.
What's that?
Ready.
Yeah, right.
It's not a drive-through. Coffee use would be nice. So here's just a couple of early snapshots. They look like they're building designs because that's what our computer does. And these are snapshots from our VR model. So again, you can put the headset on and, Carl was a surprise visitor a couple days ago and tried on the headset, and he lived through it and didn't get sick from it. But
It's a good way to view everything and see.
So this is, again, it offers so many unbelievable things as a project designer. You see stuff that you wouldn't see, and I'm an old school trace paper guy when coming up with a T-square. And so, what we're able to do for what Jason and Chris are able to do here now is these are two snapshots of the westerly building, the 16, and these are just the initial sketches of that. In the center of the parking field, we're going to break it up so that it's not a big sea of asphalt. You want to have some public spaces. There's a really nice view south there. And again, this is just a concept and it's very similar in feel to the building up on the hill, which is called the Hill House. And the work loft site, we have two other images on that. And again, these look like finished designs, but that's what the computer does. These are really still our first studies on the project.
So these are the computer's concept.
It's all artificial intelligence. They do everything. We do nothing. We just sign in the morning and it does.
Let's see, what building do I want today?
And this is again, you can drive up into that parking lot. Right now, it's kind of like an art piece because it doesn't get used, too much. But it's a nice looking parking lot. The contractor did a great job for us. And so the idea here is the site is treed, and there's some houses that are not in great shape on Sites Terrace, and they're on the left side, and we've just begun to plant there. I think through this board we put a fence in the design, and once we got into building it, you realize the fence was only protecting you 6 or 8 feet, and the view issues and stuff were higher up. So we put in a dozen evergreens in there, so that'll be really nice. And then, again, the idea is to make these are amazing. When we come back with the floor plans, it's a really great space for somebody who wants to live that way. And, we're also going to have outdoor space in the back of the buildings, and we meet all the setback requirements and stuff like that. So it's really a matter of just, the density that we're going to ask for that extra 4 units on. So thank you for listening to that. I look forward to working with the staff and the board here and moving forward.
Some ambitious plans. I'd certainly be in favor of moving the building on the existing, the west building further back, because that is forever green, as you said, because of the way they did that compact development. And that would give more relief to the houses in front, get a little more buffer there.
Yeah.
I think the buffer is better suited there versus
Maybe even further.
the back.
Maybe even further.
Push it all the way up to the, as much as you can.
Do you, as a board, if you felt that was a good idea, do you make a recommendation to the zoning board?
If we felt it was a good idea, we could. It doesn't mean they're going to accept it, but we could certainly do that.
Okay, that's great.
And I'm not sure, if that's never going to be built there, I don't see how, why they would not approve that, but I'm not.
On the other hand, we've seen never to be built on, down the road, things change.
Right.
Well, the other part, I think that's a deed restriction, but we took, where the hilltop building is adjacent to, to their Arlington's Forever Green area. We actually went in there and started to clean up the woods in there. There are a lot of fallen trees and things like that. We start to fix up a stone wall in the fall that's on their property, and just so it makes it attractive, and they don't care. The only thing that they wanted was the wine bar and a pathway to the wine bar, and we failed on that. So.
All right. Okay. All right. Any questions, comments? Anybody? Good. Thank you. We look forward to you coming back in.
Well, thanks. As simple as that.
Steve, any thoughts on timing?
We'd like to, with the idea of your support, we'd like to move ASAP.
Why don't we should probably plan a sit down and maybe map that out a little bit and to make that work for you.
Okay, maybe we can plan a workshop.
Yeah, if you could, as soon as we could do that, and we're looking forward to meeting Mike too. So, when welcome.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to actually getting out there and seeing this in person, because I'm not really familiar with the neighborhood yet.
As a matter of fact,
try to do that soon.
I was going to talk to the board about a workshop for another project in 2 weeks. That being the Psych Center project. So maybe we could schedule a workshop in 2 weeks on, a Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever day works out, and just do both at the same time. And again, a workshop is a discussion. It's a free-flowing question, answer, blah, blah, blah. No votes are taken, no decisions are made, but it's a way for the applicant to get the feeling of the board toward the ideas and things they're throwing out and give us some information about what's, even an update. So I'll work with Eric. Maybe we can work something out with both the applicants on the same day.
Well, if I could offer this up, if this is a good idea, is we'll have the VR model ready, and it might be, and right now we're I don't know, can we bring it here, or?
Potentially could.
Yeah, so if not, we could have the meeting at our office since it's not so far away, and, it's all set up. So if that's inconvenient, then we'll figure out a way to
Well, we're going to have to, it has to be an advertised meeting, so it's open to the public.
Oh, okay.
So
We have a quorum of,
typically people don't come, but they have the opportunity to if they want.
so if you can plug it into this, we have screens here to see as
And
well.
you can see how easy
that's
it is
great.
to use the
Okay.
system, so it should be no problem.
That's great. And, the only difficulty is we only have one headset.
Yeah, so
but
everybody else can look at the screens and see what what you're looking at, and
yeah, it's, the way the technology
us
is moving
around.
forward, though, at some point you could be working with somebody in California. They can have the headset on there, and you can have both be inside the model and walking around like avatars and talking and experiencing the thing together. So pretty soon,
That's
the
awesome.
chairman of the planning board could live in Florida and still.
Works for me.
next time we have to have a hologram of the designs floating around in front of us here.
Well, thank you.
I have those. Oh, those are floaters. I'm sorry. That's what.
Have them
Great.
already, yeah.
Okay, we look forward to it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Oh, I don't know, you're getting a lot more units and, the commercial, the parking was fairly full and everything, I think, so keep the parking in mind as you're adding things. One thing to consider is a electric vehicle charge station, as more electric cars come along. And
We're going to actually do that in our main lot and in the new lot, because you can see that in 5 years, half the cars will be electric, it's really.
all the automakers are starting to offer them now, so.
Yeah. On the parking, just last comment, the larger building, has exactly what the ordinance requires. And, if the board, and there's room for more spaces. So if we ever thought that was a problem, we can always add spaces to it.
Okay. Can land bank some perhaps.
Yeah.
Steve, I'm also one thing we could talk about, but maybe just to get a jump on it. I'm thinking also that given the increase in density you're looking for, it might be useful to have some data on parking usage. That will help. That might be useful information to have as we get into site plan, but it may take some time to compile it, which is why I suggest it.
Okay.
Because that was critical in another project that the board did.
Mhm.
And it might be useful here. If you get a jump on it, then
Yeah,
if it's done properly, we could use your data instead of having our consultant go do it on short notice.
Yeah, thank you.
So
We're
we
actually
could-
starting that now. We have a count, we're counting
You mentioned
cars.
earlier, that caught my attention when you talked about the 1.2 spaces per unit.
Right.
That's an interesting number.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, we actually have a register of the number of cars and people, so we can share that. That's great. So we'll pursue all that stuff.
Okay.
Is there anything else you want us to think about too while we're designing stuff?
Just saying that, the parking in general, that's a good thing that Eric mentioned, to do all that, because a lot of apartment complexes, you have all the parking by code for the residents, but then somebody has a party or there's visitors, and you need a few extra spaces, so just to keep that in the back of your mind.
We'll do that study just so that you can make a good decision on that. But I guess maybe the question is, are you comfortable with our asking for a little bit more density here? Given the way the neighborhood's been set up to date?
I don't have a problem with it.
I don't have an issue, the 16 versus 13 by right sounds fine with me, and the other, I didn't see the layout of what you're proposing there, those live-work units, but.
Yeah.
I think it's too soon to tell. I mean, we really have to see, what you have in mind. We can't, it may be okay, it might not be, depending on, the presentation. I think it's a little premature to say whether or not we can guarantee that you're going to get great density.
We certainly couldn't guarantee anything at this point.
Oh, sure.
But we need to, he's right, we need to see it and.
Don't get me wrong, I love you to death.
Digest it.
Yeah.
Digest.
But, you know, we have to operate based on facts, not on intuition.
Conceptual.
But we have to see the data.
So, you know, I appreciate that. What would be some of the things you'd be concerned about that
I'm
we can?
really not going to go into it now.
Okay.
But you know how to make a presentation.
Okay.
It's got to conform, you know, we have a schedule, and it has to conform with that schedule. I mean, if it makes sense, but I don't want to be unfair to you and say that at this point, we can give you a favorable direction in terms of increased density. We have to see the project first.
And even at the workshop, we need to see it, but we can't give you any kind of definitive answer.
I appreciate
But
that.
That's
Yeah,
what we need
just
to do.
for the point of confidence is the only variance that we're looking for really is not parking. You know, it's going to meet the ATC requirements, and we're going to have more than what the requirements are all the way around. It's really going to be just the number of units, and in the case of that westerly building, if we, in fact.
Again,
move
once
it
we can
back.
look at this in its
Yeah.
totality.
Yep.
And all the different pieces and moving parts put together, then we can better give you a sense.
Be fair.
Yep.
I mean, looking forward to you're proposing in the future these blue buildings as well. I think, you know, when you first came in with this whole proposal, I think one of the biggest concerns of the neighbors was how high the buildings would be. So I don't know what you're thinking at this point, what they would be, but.
We're working on a 10-story building, and I don't think it would
That
work
was,
here.
yeah, that's the one they didn't want.
That could work.
Yeah.
One unit per floor, yeah. Stevie, the one thing I tell you by experience, I don't know if you've ever been down the Toll Brothers thing, a Regency, whatever, off Myers, off All Angels. They made a gross, there's just an error that someone made. There's no parking for guests, none. Okay, and you go there and someone has a card game, because I have friends that live there, there's absolutely no place other than a driveway where there's two spots to park. There's no lot, there's nothing. So you gotta make some accommodation for that.
Right.
It's just a terrible situation.
You know, the one beautiful thing about a mixed-use neighborhood, which you're allowing us to build here, is that we have completely different needs during the day and at nighttime. So a lot of the residential people are gone during the day. You know, that main lot at nighttime, it has 70 some odd parking spaces, and there's 8 cars in it. So if someone's having a party in the building across the street, there's also ways of walking to get up to the street. So I think to your point, we'll come back with the data, you know, because then it'll make you feel more or less comfortable.
Data is important,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Great. Great, thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Good night. Anything else before the board? Nope. Move to terminate?
I move we terminate the meeting.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
That was loud.
Meeting terminated.